I think it would be a great fight. I love both. I think if Conor can put himself back into the hell zone that is in the tunnel, but the light is after the fight. But I'm not gonna put myself in the light until I'm done with the fight. That's if he put himself into that zone, we're gonna have a hell of a fight.
What about the other side of the coin? I mean, we talked about Conor coming back this great moment. Max Holloway, like, I feel like he can't lose this fight at this point in his career.
Yeah.
It's like really bad for him, especially after how the Charles fight went.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's really bad. It's just like Max has been around forever as well. Been a part of the roster since he was 19. It's insane, you know, and the career he's had is unbelievable. Even that fight with Italy Taporia, I was watching it on the flight over here. I forgot. He was doing really good. It was a very competitive fight until he got stopped, of course. So yeah, obviously it favours Max Holloway. He's got the numbers, he's got the resume. He's been fighting nothing but the best, probably 3 times a year the whole time Conor's been away. You know, so I don't think, and if he loses, it's not exactly the end of the world. I think Max Holloway will be just fine if he loses this fight, but I don't think he's going to probably lose it. He's probably going to do very, very well.
This Conor McGregor fight in July is going to be fucking bananas. It's going to be bananas. I mean, people are going to go crazy for the return of Conor McGregor because he's a giant personality.
But don't expect the same thing.
How could
you
it
just
be?
can't.
He hasn't fought in 5 years,
That's
right?
exactly it.
It's been 5
and
years.
but that's the problem.
It might be more.
Because they're
Most
going
of
to
the time
all
Conor
expect
McGregor-
that.
I think it is a little over 5. It's almost 6, I think.
It might be 6 at the time of the fight.
It might be.
I think it was
it's
July.
5. I think it's 5 right now.
Are we expecting to see a Conor that looked like Nate this last fight? Or are we expecting to see a better Conor than someone that looked like Nate? Because Nate did not look good.
No,
Well,
Mike
but-
Perry did.
And
Mike
yeah.
Perry looked like a fucking murderer.
You know what I mean? Like
Mike Perry is a murderer.
He's a murderer.
and this is
Such a savage.
You take a look at that. And, when you're taking an older fighter, which Nate is now, and you're
21.
You're
5 fucking years ago, July. So it literally will be 6 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
But when
Oh
you're
no,
taking
it'll be 5 years.
5
It'll be
years.
5
5
years.
years.
In-
when you're taking a younger fighter and putting them against the old dog, it normally doesn't end well for the old dog.
Who wins, Conor McGregor or Max Holloway at UFC 329, July 11th?
Holloway.
Really? A
It's
little
going
bit
to
of a
be
chance?
dangerous for Max early, though. Listen, me and Conor aren't exactly friendly. But what I'm saying is, so I'm not saying this from a perspective of we're friends and we're buddies. He was the 2-weight division champion. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, he made all this money and all the rest of it. But the man's the most powerful tool.
Yeah.
And the guy that was there, all right, granted, it was a long time ago, 2016. But if the motivation's strong enough, he can come back and look really good. And yeah, he was flipping out at Max the other day in that interview.
Did you see the
But he was
interview?
playing the game. He was promoting the fight, hyping it up big time, and he looks good, you know, like he looks like he's training and taking the camp seriously. And if he is doing that, I'm telling you.
But I think
Max is awesome on the feet, but Conor's got the power early.
Primeiro você e todo mundo sabe que essa luta foi que era pra mim estar lá, né? E ele preferiu o Max pensando que ele vai bater no Max, né? Porque ele correu de mim, essa é real.
Chegou a ser oferecido? Chegou a ser conversado sobre isso?
Na realidade, não chegou a ser oferecido, mas todo mundo sabia que quem vencesse entre mim e o Max lutaria com ele, e na realidade ele escolheu o Max porque ele achou que é um caminho mais fácil. Mas vamos lá, vamos falar da luta de Max Holloway e ele. Cara, eu acho que na realidade é uma luta complicada pelo fato de faz muito tempo que ele não vem ao queijo. Tem quantos anos que tá fora, parado?
Acho que 5 anos.
Entendeu? Então, tipo assim, faz muito tempo, faz 5 anos que ele tá parado, que ele não luta. Porém, é o Conor, né? É o Conor. Se você marcar e ele conectar, ele vai te nocautear. Eu acho que primeiro e segundo round tem muito para ele. Depois, dali em diante, com certeza, para mim, o Max tem muito de vencer, de trabalhar, de estar ali, de fazer acontecer.
The numbers are in, and they're not close. Across every major sportsbook and every prediction market tracking UFC 329, the experts have made their call on Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway 2, and it isn't the pick most casual fans expected walking into fight week. Holloway opened as a heavy favorite the moment this fight was made official, and that number hasn't moved in his direction so much as it's simply held. Depending on the book, Holloway sits anywhere from around -240 to nearly -300, which translates to an implied win probability sitting comfortably above 70%. McGregor, meanwhile, opens as the biggest underdog of his entire UFC career, somewhere in the range of +160 to +240 depending on where you're looking. Prediction markets tell the same story from a different angle. Across platforms like Kalshi and Polymarket, Holloway is sitting around 65 to 66% to win, with McGregor trailing at roughly 34 to 35%. When the betting markets and the prediction markets land in the same neighborhood, that's not noise. That's a genuine consensus. So why are the people who study this sport for a living so confident in Holloway, even against a two-division champion with knockout power and a decade of star power behind him? Start with the simplest explanation, the one that shows up in nearly every expert breakdown of this fight: activity. McGregor hasn't competed since breaking his leg against Dustin Poirier at UFC 264 back in July of 2021. That's 5 years without stepping into the octagon, 5 years without taking a real punch from a live opponent trying to end his night. His last actual win came against Donald Cerrone in January of 2020, a fight that lasted 40 seconds against an opponent who was already fading at that point in his career. Holloway, on the other hand, has fought 8 times in that same stretch, going 5-3, including a run at the BMF title and a decision win over Poirier himself. However this fight goes, one man has been living inside the octagon this entire time. The other has been living everywhere except it. Alex Rella, the trading manager at BetMGM, laid out the sportsbook's reasoning about as plainly as it gets. Who knows what version of Conor is going to show up? Rella said, pointing to the uncertainty around a fighter who hasn't tested himself against live competition in half a decade. That uncertainty is exactly what the odds are pricing in. It isn't that odds makers think McGregor has lost his power or his instincts entirely. It's that nobody, including the people whose job it is to set these numbers for a living, actually knows which version of him walks out on July 11th. Holloway brings a very different kind of certainty into this fight, and it's the kind that tends to matter most once the horn sounds. He holds the UFC's all-time records for both significant strikes landed and total strikes landed, numbers built through relentless volume across nearly a decade of elite-level competition. 3 of his last 4 fights went to a decision, which tells you something important about how this man operates. He isn't chasing highlight reel finishes. He's grinding out rounds, pushing pace, and making opponents answer questions for 15 or 25 straight minutes. That style doesn't care how explosive you look in the first round. It cares whether you're still moving the same way in the fourth. That's the stylistic matchup experts keep circling back to, because it plays directly against what's always been McGregor's biggest vulnerability. He's a fast starter with real power, but his conditioning under sustained pressure has been questioned before, most notably in his loss to Nate Diaz at UFC 196, where he faded and got finished in the second round after pushing an early pace he couldn't sustain. Holloway's entire game plan, against literally any opponent he's ever faced, is built around making fights long and uncomfortable. If McGregor can't put him away early, the fight tilts hard in Holloway's direction as the rounds pile up. There is a case for McGregor here, and the experts making it aren't dismissing it entirely, just weighing it against everything working against him. The weight class matters. This fight happens at welterweight, a jump up for Holloway, who's spent his entire career at featherweight and lightweight. McGregor has more experience carrying size at the top level, and some analysts have pointed to that as his one real structural edge, especially if his power translates cleanly to the new weight. There's also the layoff cutting both ways. 5 years away means no accumulated damage, no wear and tear from additional fights, and time for his surgically repaired leg to fully heal. If McGregor is somehow sharper and fresher than the version of him fans last saw, all these numbers could look very different by the final horn. But most expert analysis keeps landing in the same place. Wager Talk handicapper Andy Lang, breaking down the card ahead of July 11th, pointed to Holloway's recent form against elite competition, including performances against Poirier and former champion Justin Gaethje, as the deciding factor. Lang's read is straightforward. Holloway should be the faster fighter, his jab should be a constant presence all night, and his overall output should be enough to control the pace from bell to bell. That kind of pick, from someone who studies fight card after fight card for a living, lines up with almost everything the betting markets and prediction platforms are already saying. It's also worth remembering what actually happened the first time these two shared the octagon. Back in August of 2013, at UFC Fight Night 26 in Boston, a 25-year-old McGregor beat a 21-year-old Holloway by unanimous decision, a result that becomes even more notable given McGregor reportedly tore his ACL midway through that fight and still finished it on the scorecards, then sat out roughly 10 months to recover. That was a different era for both men. Holloway has spent the 13 years since building one of the most complete resumes in featherweight history. McGregor became one of the biggest stars the sport has ever produced, but has fought increasingly rarely as his career has gone on. The fighter who won that first meeting and the fighter stepping in on July 11 share a name and not much else. There's a deeper stylistic wrinkle here that a lot of casual breakdowns skip past, and it has nothing to do with power or speed. Holloway isn't a grappler. He's never been a wrestling-heavy fighter, and this matchup isn't going to be decided by takedowns or time spent on the mat. This is a pure kickboxing match between two of the best strikers of their generation, which actually cuts against some of the traditional advantages a fresh, powerful puncher normally has over a high-volume opponent. In a fight where the wrestling threat is off the table entirely, output and durability tend to matter even more than usual, because neither man has to worry about defending a shot or working off his back. That dynamic plays directly into Holloway's hands. His entire style is built to thrive in exactly the kind of firefight this fight is guaranteed to become. Holloway's welterweight debut is also its own experiment, and it's one of the more interesting subplots the experts keep coming back to. He's built his entire career throwing volume at a rate of close to 7 significant strikes per minute, a pace that's punished smaller, less durable opponents at featherweight and lightweight for a decade. Whether that exact pace survives a jump of 2 full weight classes against a naturally bigger, harder-hitting opponent is genuinely unknown. There's no tape on it. Nobody has seen Holloway operate at this size against this level of competition, which is part of why even analysts who favor him aren't treating this as a lock. What's actually at stake here goes well beyond a single result on the record book. For McGregor, this fight is close to a referendum on whether he's still a viable threat at the top level of the sport, or whether the last 5 years have simply passed him by. He's 37 now, coming off a 1-3 stretch in his last 4 fights, and this is officially the longest-priced underdog role of his entire UFC career. A win doesn't just beat the odds. It rewrites the entire conversation around what's still possible for him, potentially reopening doors to super fights and crossover events that a loss would likely close for good. For Holloway, the equation is different but just as real. He's coming off a BMF title loss to Charles Oliveira back in March, and a win here, in a new weight class, against one of the biggest names the sport has ever had, would be a statement performance that could put him right back into title contention conversations, at a division he's never even fought in before this bout. There's also a business layer sitting underneath all of this that shapes how experts are framing McGregor's side of the story. This fight is reportedly one of his final bouts remaining on his current UFC contract, and however July 11 goes, his next move is already generating speculation. He's floated big money boxing and bare-knuckle matchups in the past, and any new UFC deal he signs is expected to leave room for those kinds of crossover events. That context matters when you're trying to read McGregor's motivation. This isn't a fighter clawing his way back to a title. It's a global star treating one more octagon appearance as a bridge to whatever comes next, and some analysts have questioned whether that mindset produces the same hunger that once made him nearly impossible to beat in his prime. None of this happens in isolation either. UFC 329 lands during International Fight Week, arguably the single biggest week on the entire UFC calendar, and the card around this main event is stacked. Benoit Saint-Denis meets Paddy Pimblett in a fight some handicappers already see as a live underdog situation for Pimblett. Corey Sandhagen faces Mario Bautista, and the bantamweight and flyweight divisions get their own high-stakes action lower on the card. None of that changes the math on the main event, but it does explain why this particular card has become the center of the entire combat sports conversation heading into the second week of July. When McGregor returns, everything else on the schedule gets pulled into his orbit. So where does that leave the actual prediction? Strip away the star power and the nostalgia of two legends running it back 13 years later, and the numbers tell a fairly consistent story. The odds favor Holloway, the prediction markets favor Holloway, the professional handicappers breaking down the stylistic matchup mostly favor Holloway. The case for McGregor exists, and it's not nothing, built on power, size retention, and the possibility that a healed leg and a fresh body outweigh 5 years of rust. But when this many independent sources, using different methods and different incentives, all land in roughly the same place, that consensus is worth taking seriously heading into July 11th. It's also worth pointing out how rare it is for the betting markets, the prediction markets, and the professional handicappers to line up this cleanly on a fight involving someone as unpredictable as McGregor. Historically, His fights have been some of the hardest for odds makers to price, precisely because his knockout power means any single exchange can end the night regardless of what the tape says beforehand. The fact that this particular consensus has held steady, even as money has moved and public sentiment has shifted in McGregor's direction over the past 2 weeks, says something about how confident the people setting these numbers actually are in Holloway's game plan holding up. Do the experts have this one right, or is a healthy, motivated McGregor about to make every one of these predictions look foolish? Let us know who you've got winning this one and why. And if you want every breakdown, every odds movement, and every reaction heading into fight week, subscribe and stay locked in.